The last several months or so have not been too kind for Scott Boras or his clients, some of them now being previous clients. I mean, on the surface, when you have a Cy Young Award winner and an integral piece to a World Series championship as a couple of clients heading into free agency, and that's just naming two, it's pretty safe to assume that they both were going to make bank. Obviously, I mean, who doesn't want a Cy Young Award winner or an innings eating solid starter who just helped his team win the World Series? But context is always important, and there was a whole lot of discussion about Blake Snell needing that context. That, yeah, he just won the Cy Young Award, and yeah, he now has two of those under his belt, but he's also shown no reason throughout his career to be a trustworthy pitcher, someone to trust for many years. I feel like that was just as obvious, which is why many fans started to point at Snell's fellow, now former Boras client, Jordan Montgomery, as a better option for a long-term contract. But here's the truth. Neither of them are or ever were. So if you're part of the 70% of viewers not subscribed yet, come aboard and join the wonderful people who are subscribed to the channel, as this whole Scott Boras strategy of having his clients wait until the very end to get the best contract possible has worked in the past, like it did with Bryce Harper, but it's typically not the best route to go, especially for a pitcher. I do think there's a massive difference between those two in terms of preparation. For a pitcher to wait such a long time to face real big league hitting is clearly a disadvantage that I think teams like the Giants and D-backs overlooked, although I do think they made the right moves in the end. Because as bad as the pitchers have been, the Giants and D-backs barely have any commitment to these guys, so it's not nearly the end of the world. But that's beside the point. I feel like, and I've said this before, I feel like too many baseball fans have such a short-term memory and in the worst situations possible. How many big contracts have we seen given out to big-name pitchers specifically that end up in a nightmare? Pitchers, especially relief pitchers, but also starters, might be the most bipolar position in all of sports. One year they're good, the next they suck, the next they're the best, the next they're hurt, then they suck. You truly never know, and I know that's with anyone at the end of the day, but it couldn't be more of the case with pitchers, especially with the whole elbow epidemic that's as worse as it's ever been. Yet for some reason, so many people just choose to overlook all of that and trust that just because a pitcher had a good year the last year, or even a couple or three good years, that will continue and he'll keep racking up innings, striking people out, or whatever he's been doing. And if their team's owner refuses to do such a thing, they're cheap and only care about saving money. Now, don't get it mixed up. I am all for owners spending and investing money into the team that they own to win, but it's not black and white. You can not spend and be cheap. You can spend and care. Sure, those are true, but you can also spend recklessly and have it screw your franchise over, and you can also not spend because it's the smart thing to do in that moment, not because you're cheap. And in the case of all the owners who refused to give Scott Boras' clients, including Jordan Montgomery, what they wanted, that's just being smart and reading the room, not pinching pennies. Way back when Montgomery's free agency was beginning, Jon Heyman reported that he and Boras were using Carlos Rodon's contract as a comparison to what they wanted. And for some context, Carlos Rodon got 6 years and $162 million for his Yankees deal. Look, I totally understand asking for more than what you're worth or something that you're probably not going to get. Anyone would. Why not? It's not illegal to do that. I could ask for a lightsaber all I want. It's not going to land me in Guantanamo Bay, but it's also not going to land me a lightsaber. Same thing. He obviously wasn't getting $162 million. And so he waited and waited and waited and waited and waited, finally having to settle just days before the season began on Arizona. Instead of 6 years, just 1 year and $25 million. Montgomery also has an option for a second year that he can opt out of if he makes 10 starts this year, which he's already done, so he can opt out. But if he decides to stay for 2025, the more starts Montgomery makes in 2024, the more money he makes in 2025. Skip ahead to what's currently going down, and it's ugly. Uglier than what anyone thought, even though Montgomery did miss spring training. So bad to the point where Montgomery might very well feel the need to opt into 2025, because as of now, there is no chance in hell that he's getting a better option out on the free agent market. He's getting crushed. He's given up 8 home runs, his ERA is over 6, he's been booed off the mound multiple times, and nothing seems to be improving. Now, a big talking point, and it's the same for Snell, has been the fact that Montgomery missed spring training, and how that's such an important factor in his struggles, and I do agree with that. Not sure how you can't. But Montgomery not being great this year isn't as crazy as you may have initially thought it would be. I mean, Jordan Montgomery was a good starting pitcher, not just 2023, but 2022 and 2021 as well. Great. The amount of innings he threw per season also improved each year. Great. All of it is. And Montgomery's stats in 2024 aren't an accurate representation of how good he is as a pitcher, obviously. It's really bad. This is basically as bad as it's ever gotten for him. But the point is, $162 million money, the money he and his agent were originally going for, is not an appropriate amount to give Montgomery even prior to this year. He's always been a very good pitcher, no doubt, but he's not an ace, and neither is he a number 2 starter. At best, he's a number 3. He's a really solid middle of the rotation guy to have. Someone who isn't going to strike out the world. He's not going to have an insanely low ERA, but he will rack up innings and be good, which is really all you can ask for at the end of the day from any starting pitcher, but not a number 1 or 2 specifically that deserves a crazy big contract. Again, is he this bad? No, but he's also not someone who should be trusted as the highest paid player, not just the Arizona Diamondbacks rotation, but their entire team. He's making more money than anyone on Arizona, almost $12 million more than the next highest paid player. Yes, it's a short-term deal, but Montgomery, despite his good numbers over the last 3 years, is not someone to rely on. That goes for any team, and it's not just based off of this year's production so far. And I think it goes to the overall point that there are so few pitchers in Major League Baseball who could or should be trusted with not just high money per year, but a long-term commitment. Because of the fact that pitchers in general, like I said, are very bipolar, and you don't truly know how consistent anyone will be, especially middle of the rotation guys like Montgomery, along with the elbow epidemic that just adds a whole new layer to the whole thing. That's not good. I mean, I've gotten to the point where I don't see a reason for any team to sign any pitcher over 4 years at this point. Anything longer just feels unnecessary. It doesn't matter how good they are or how durable they've been. These guys are dropping like flies whether they've had elbow issues in the past or not. And so you can look at a guy like Montgomery and say, well, he's been very durable and reliable to make his starts every 5 days for 3 years now. And my rebuttal to that would be the fact that that has no implication on how the future looks. None. If anything, making lots of starts over the last few years and racking up innings could be worse and mean that pitcher's elbow is only closer to blowing up. Montgomery hasn't had any elbow issues, not yet, but who's to say he won't, just like with any other pitcher in baseball. And in the meantime, it's been a mess even with him not dealing with any of that. He's obviously not this bad of a pitcher, but I don't really look at these struggles and say, wow, what a shocker, because with the combination of not having a spring training, plus just never being a proven guy anyway, not proven enough to be the highest paid player on a team at least, to see him struggle doesn't surprise me, just like it doesn't surprise me to see Snell have the same results. Yes, he had 3 solid years leading up to this, but 3 years of being a good mid-rotation starting pitcher still isn't enough to expect to continue. It very well could have, but my point is Montgomery falling off and not being nearly as effective, at least so far this year, is not as wild as a lot of you probably may have thought it would be. It's kind of 50-50 with most pitchers, and Montgomery's in that group of 50-50. There's only so many pitchers that you can be shocked if they regress even a little bit. Although seeing the Red Sox have a much better half to the season is definitely more shocking, not just for the fans, but for Jordan Montgomery himself, someone who everyone and their mother linked to Boston over the offseason. The end result? Well, obviously that didn't happen, and he's a D-back, but Montgomery reportedly didn't love the idea of signing with the Red Sox. Why? Because he wanted to win. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.